Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby!
Welcome back to another week, another episode. My name's still Mickey. I've realised my camera's inverted on this one, so that just really threw me massively. This week, joined by, as promised, Nicolas over here. See, that's normally I'd do that, and it would. So there we go. Nicolas over there, and Daniel, LArks and enessbe, opposite respectively. Cool. So I'll start with you, Nicolas. How you doing, bud? I'm all right. Yeah. As things go, good. Cool. I'm glad we've had this conversation. Right. What about yourself, Lux? Good. In case people don't know, both of these people had the opportunity to meet way back now 2 years ago, roughly speaking. No, a year ago. Yeah. And that was all obviously at the LGT last year. Two people who are relatively close to myself and Carlo as well, long-time patrons. The guests are muted. That was, so there we go, Tom. This is what happens when you forget to do one little thing in prep. You see, this show has literally, in like 3 years, never gotten any better, right? We have maintained a level of terribleness that you simply cannot repeat. So, there you go. Yes, Nicolas and LArks, long time patrons, long time kind of fans of the site as well, and people we've had many a game and conversation with, and also pretty much, I believe, 2 years in a row running German national champions. And was there a national champion 3 years ago? There wasn't, was there? The one before
Nope.
that was. There was one in. It wasn't really a national championship, was it? But there was one pre-COVID, I think. Like a big event.
Not that I know of. Yeah.
No, I think there was a big event that was kind of. No, I can't remember. That was way long ago. Anyway, so this is, strictly speaking, the full amount, all of the German national winners so far. One of them's not even in German.
Look at this crowd.
So it's such a huge crowd. Everyone cheering. Way. Anyway, Andrew says first time catching live. Good on you, Andrew. I appreciate that. I slaughtered Daniel's name again. Yes, almost definitely.
Good tradition. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah. Right, Theo then. So, Nicolas, German nationals. Obviously, congratulations again on the win.
Thank you.
Targaryens. I know that you put out a massive post about Targaryens and invited comments, invited discussion, which is great. But first of all, before we dive into all of that, before we dive into the faction and break all that down, how was it? How was the event? You know, how was it getting there? Of course, you know, all of that kind of side of it.
The thing is that I'm pretty close from Duisburg, so I'm way closer from Duisburg than Daniel, for instance. And so my ride to there was very easy. I just left after my day of working, and literally it was 1 hour and 40 minutes. So it's very quick to reach Duisburg when you are living in Belgium, and particularly on the eastern part of Belgium. And so the thing is that overall it was fairly easy. I arrived on Friday, and I just met Daniel there. We went. We talked a bit. We went to bed, and then in the morning it was very smooth. The thing was all well organized. It was starting a bit early, or early to my taste. So it was 8 30. And the thing is that overall, I think that it was a great experience. You could take a few hiccups from that the organizations fell, but us as players, we didn't feel it. So overall, I feel like it was very smooth. I don't know, what about you, Daniel?
Was a perfect event. We had 7 games. Was very well organized by Tabletop Warden and the Drunken Dwarfs. We had guys coming over asking whether we want something to drink or if everything is fine. We had a stream up there and great atmosphere. So yeah, big props to the organization and the support. So we could really concentrate on our games, and we had plenty of time too. We had 2 hours 15.
Yeah.
So that was a different thing than remembering like LGT and especially invitationals. So yeah, no, it was great.
That's great.
Great event.
I mean, I was going to ask you, Daniel, off the back of last year. So you obviously attended last year's event, which was streamed again. I know that Ilya and Yannick did a pretty good job, but that was hosted at the enessbe convention, wasn't it? How did the event compare if you were to take the two side by side, from a player perspective? How would you compare the two? Was this year better? Do you think? Was it worse? Do you think it was different? What's your opinion?
From a player perspective, it was a more smooth experience since last year we had the top cut, for example, which was very controversial and made basically the second day devaluated or whatever the second day. And this time I lack the proper English experience, but there were more rounds than we needed to decide one winner. And from my perspective, that really kept players going and striving for the best possible placement that they could reach in the tournament. And since we were not part of a big convention, and there were no other games around, it was really focused on the game and celebrating the game. At the same time, I personally really liked the atmosphere of the convention and being able to see other tabletops played and so on. So that was also nice. But it was cool to see that we could muster 64 people, and we probably could have mustered way more, especially regarding the international attendance, which was very limited due to the fact that I think the organizers too were a little bit surprised by how quick the places were empty basically. So that was really cool to see the growth. Yeah.
No, it was great. Obviously we saw it in the kind of run up, and we spoke about it as well, about how basically all the slots had been taken up almost immediately. The event had been advertised. It'd gone, been the rumor mill had started. Oh, there's going to be an event here. Everything was kind of like talking about it. The event went up on stats, and I was like, oh look, it's up there. And then someone was saying, oh yeah, like we've already sold like 60 tickets or something like that. Like it's already actually sold out basically. And I know that Nicolas, you kind of got in with a little bit of luck. With thanks to Daniel of all people. So which is great, obviously. It is really great that that's been obviously able to be done. But yeah, it's I think from an outside perspective, obviously you had 54 people actually on the day. You always get dropouts. It happens, natural. But it's definitely shown where I think last year, you had 32, but it was dubious whether people thought it could get bigger. I think that this has proven that it could easily be 64 plus next year, and feel comfortable at that. So
Definitely. I think they didn't overbook, which one probably could do if you run an event at this time period. But I see that it's not easy to do. But yeah, like I think also from all the posts and messages, I think there could definitely be they could be aiming for way higher number, and they already hinted that they want to do that and try to do that next year. And they were happy, I guess, with how it went this year, and that's a good base to for next year go for more international attendance, and then I think it's a very very well rounded package.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things is obviously hitting the 128 is very hard. But even if it's something like 80 to 100, when you've got the 7 rounds, you've got enough there to sort that out, like you said before. And this event kind of proved it, right? You both said that you liked the fact there were 7 rounds, and I'm not gonna lie, I was with a bit of Dwan. We were supporting Nicolas going into the last round, partially because his game was on stream, but also because it was good to see NS doing well. We were super hyped, super happy, and I looked at it. I was looking at it, and I was like, actually, like you've got Nicolas versus it was forgetting his name now, Dorian. Esport. On table 1, but then it was yourself, LArks versus, was it you against Timberwolf? Was it?
No, I was playing against Felix, which is
Felix,
yeah, my local enemy from Arc enemy.
So yeah, like the 4 of you, I think there was somebody else on table 3 who was also at 5-1 at the time. So Nicolas was the only one at 6-0, and I think there was one person on table 3 at 5-1. But their secondaries meant that it didn't matter if they won their game with a crushing. Is that either yourself, LArks, or Felix, or Esport, or Nicolas would have still won the event over them. But actually, I was looking at it and like technically all 4 of you could still have won the event in the last round. So yes, like some people felt like, oh, 1 game out, whatever, but like there was still 4 people in the running in the last round, and I think that's really good. And it came down to, ultimately, obviously, if Nicolas wins, he's the only one with it fully in his control. Nicolas wins, he wins the event, 7-0, happy days. But if he loses, then there's all kinds of secondaries, tertiaries come in, and yeah, it was the right mess, really, looking at it, trying to work out what was going to happen. But then, in case people didn't know, you didn't see last week's show, but if you already knew, Nicolas put on a fairly strong, dominating display of rolling 1s. And then also won his game. How many 1s did you roll in that? Like first 2 rounds or something?
I think that it was 4 over the first 2 rounds, 4 disorderly charges over the first 2 rounds. And I think that it was over 5 charges or 6 charges.
Amazing. So.
And one of them was with rerolls from Fire and Blood, obviously.
Oh yeah, of course. So it just goes to show. That you can win a game even if you roll basically all 1s on your charges. That's the moral here. That's it. End of the show. Done. Right. No. Obviously, Nicolas. Obviously watched the game. Going into the game, playing that game, I know that Free Folk are not your favourite faction to play into. What was your kind of thoughts going into the game?
That this was not really the game that I was the most afraid about, because he was playing Varamir, and it was Clash of Kings. So for me, it was, I'm going to be okay whatever happens, because I can snipe the pets, and in that mode, I will have my entire plan rely on Drogo being supported by the dragons instead of the dragons being supported by Drogo. And so it shifted my mindset. And I was fairly confident in the entire game, simply because he had only 1 traps. He had no real major threats. And so I was okay and very confident in the fact that I could outplay him, outplay his Mag the Mighty. Because, the thing is that my usual opponents playing Free Folk are you and Daniel. So the thing is that when I'm playing someone with less experience than you guys, I'm feeling confident.
That's a very nice way of saying he thinks we're good, I think, LArks.
I heard the compliment. May I step in because I can because one thing Nicolas mentioned was the failing charges in a row, and one thing we missed talking about the event earlier was that, and that was a cool thing, I think. They had a couple of side challenges that you could accomplish during the
cool.
tournament,
Yeah.
which is nowadays, I think, not the most uncommon thing, but it was still very cool, and they had nice prizes tied to them, which fitted really from a lore perspective. And also failing, I think, 3 charges in a game or something was a challenge. But it went after time. I think if you did it first, then you got the prize, right? So you...
No, I think that it was a random.
Was it random? Okay.
I think that it was random because I did it twice. I did it in my first round and my 7th game. So first game and 7th game. So I did it twice with four disorderly charges. Yes, it was a bit sad. No, personally, I got my other diploma or award. That was I don't need my little birds. So overall, the fact that I didn't use any of my, or that I only used one Varys token over the entire first game.
Yeah, there were funny little things to accomplish. So that also spiced things up. That was cool.
Yeah. I love that. As I know that's you say it's not really unique anymore. Some places have started doing it. It's becoming more common, but like I like seeing it because everyone does it differently, right? Like you saw about like not using Varus tokens. That's not something I've ever seen before. And I think it's a bizarre extra thing that like I would never necessarily have thought about, right? So it is good to see those kind of like side awards going out, and they're always interesting. All right then. So yeah, that last game, if you haven't seen it on stream, go watch it. I'll plug it again. But the Tabletops Wardens YouTube guys, give Ilya and Yannick some love over there. And Bartender now. He's speaking part of the Tabletop Warden crew. And yeah, the really, really good stream as well. Like in terms of like the quality of the stream, it was relatively easy to follow what was going on in the games, even in German. And relatively, good quality stream and play. So that's good. Okay then. So I'm gonna let you guys break down some kind of list-related questions now. And I know, Nicolas, you've already got an essay on this, so I'm sure you'll be able to go for it. And I'm interested in your decisions, Daniel, because we had this conversation, and I want to see why you decided on what you decided on in the end. But before we do that, Paperboy J asked a question in chat: why are so many unpainted armies allowed on a grand tournament? Shouldn't it be common for GTs to have fully painted restrictions? The short answer is in other games, that is true. Like in Warhammer 40k, Fantasy back in the day, it was very common for, and even Sigmar I should say, very, very common for people to have fully painted armies because GW put that restriction on the game. CMON don't put that restriction on the game at all for A Song of Ice and Fire. The only actual restriction that CMON has is about the models, right? They have to be Dark Sword miniature models, be that the CMON produced game or the actual standalone like pewter / metal figures you can get from Dark Sword directly. They are actually completely legal as well. But yeah, they don't go for the kind of like requirement of painted, and I think part of it is because the game is smaller. It adds a level of pressure and a barrier to entry, and unlike a lot of unlike things like 40k and fantasy, which many people on this call have played games like that, you can kind of be flexible with what a unit is. You pick up a Space Marine and it's a Space Marine with X gun or Y gun, and if things aren't painted or they don't look like what they're supposed to be, it gets very confusing all of a sudden because you suddenly need the rulebook just to see what a unit has. Whereas in Song, like, it's either a unit of raiders or it's not a unit of raiders, right? Like, the game is a lot easier to determine that way. There isn't like, this is a unit of raiders, but I bought spears for 1 extra point. No, they're a unit of raiders. They may or may not have an attachment. Done. So I think that requirement as well. Plus the coloured plastic obviously helps a lot as well. So even when they're not painted, and in some regards when they're not painted and you've got two different factions, it's easier to tell who's who when they're not painted. Because like it's orange versus green. That's really handy. But I don't know what your thoughts on it are. I enjoy painting. I can't say I've got a fully painted army yet, but what's your takes on painting? And should CMON put a painting requirement in for events? That's the question.
Definitely not, I guess. But go ahead, Nicolas.
No, I was going to say because you, if I'm not mistaken, you never paint your armies, right?
Yeah, I got a lot of love during the last stream for German Nationals for because I was on stream a couple of times, and I always had my unpainted free folk there. But I'm not against painting or anything. I really like painting. I like painted armies and all. It's great. But I think it's an intelligent thing not to put a barrier there, because especially for Song, where you recruit the players also from a more board game-ish context. Yeah, I mean, why put a if they don't enjoy modeling, fine, they can still play the game. And I think we should build an inclusive community, not an exclusive community. And so let everyone enjoy what they enjoy, and the common ground is the game. So that's fine.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's simply that I feel like it is consistent with Siemens' decision to even provide all the miniatures that are mounted, and that you don't have any modelism to do, and you don't have to do any conversion or this kind of thing. When I was playing all the different GW games, I was literally spending a lot of time doing the modelism and only mounting the miniatures. And so it was not such a pleasant thing that I remember, because I'm not really good at that, or I don't really love it. Even when at the moment I'm mounting my Malifaux miniatures, I'm a bit, this is so boring. So I prefer to have it in one piece, where I don't have to think about, is it going to be properly mounted? Is it going to be properly removing all the plastic features? No, it's just take it, prime it or not, paint it or not, and then okay, whatever. So I think it is consistent with what Simon is doing. So yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I would say it's interesting because I know people do like painted models, and I think this is the flip side of it, right? Is that I am a big fan of events, and all events, even GTs, should have prizes for painted models, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You know, that is a big thing. I think one of the things that the LGT did, going back to that example last year, did it again this year, is that a lot of emphasis is placed on the best painted armies, the best painted models, the best painted figures. And it's not just one entry, there's usually like 3 or 4 different entries for painting that you can enter. So, you know, it's not a case of just paint your army and that's it. It's actually a case of, well, if you want to paint something really nice, paint it really nice. If it wants to be one model, wants to be a unit, wants to be a full army, and then people are rewarded for that. You know, I look at Dave Meckler in the US. Dave Meckler put together a full Martell painted army this year with like we've seen some of the stuff for it, I think, previously, but with like the brown dirty sand type effect and the snakes and things like that in the underbrush and stuff. And he entered that, and he entered that for best painted army. And I'm not going to sit here and say what Dave made was bad, but there were people who entered units that were phenomenally well painted. Like they made what Dave put together look terrible in comparison. They make what I put together look awful in comparison. These are stuff that is borderline expertly painted. But he put that together and presented that as a best painted army, and it won best painted because it was put together for that purpose, and that's what he enjoys doing. He's not the kind of person who takes one unit and makes it meticulously amazing, the likes we've seen Chris F&M do with his things like Knights of Castle Rock, or some of the other guys that we saw. These, I have to admit, I think I put the photo up a long time ago. See if I can find it, maybe. But this guy had a unit of Drogo Blood Riders, and they were phenomenal, like actually phenomenal. Had the opportunity to play against them as well, and yeah, 100%. We want to kind of support all of that. And Brian in chat is again not wrong at all. It does look better when it's painted. Yeah, I mean I'm not gonna lie. Of course it does. Yeah.
Oh.
We wanna definitely encourage painting. 100%. But I think as a barrier to entry means that it doesn't have to be there. And
Yeah, and if I might be picky with words for a second, because it says like in one of the comments, no painting requirements is also excluding. And I think to be precise, that's not exclusion, because if somebody doesn't enter a tournament based on this, then it's based on their preference, which is fine. Like, okay. But I think on the other end, finishing an army fully painted might really exclude because it's related to resources rather than preference, and I think that's a difference. And the more players in general attend and play the game, the better for the game as a whole.
I think it's also a lot to do with the ingrainment in the particular hobby, right? In that CMON are relatively new to miniature wargaming. They come from a board game perspective. So this is actually one of the perfect things with CMON running this game over a miniature wargaming company is that I have a lot of criticism for them, but they present the game as you buy this, take out the box, and you can play. As long as someone else has got a box, like a starter box, they'll have all the stuff that they need as well. And you can literally buy 2 starters, take them home, and have them on the table within like 3 seconds of getting home. Like,
Yep.
that is the point of this. It's just like buying Scrabble or Monopoly or any
Yep,
board
exactly.
game. And that's what CMON want to present. CMON have things like the terrain that's 2D, all of the battle map, everything that you need in the starter set is enough to play. You don't actually need a single thing outside the starter to play. Now we can sit here and talk about competitively how you need like FAQs, you need like print out new tactics cards, all these kind of things. Yeah, Daniel's right. We shouldn't talk about those things. But actually, in the end of the day, that's because we want to play the most recent, up-to-date competitive rule set, right? Not because we want to play the game out the box. We're looking for a different thing, and CMON present that. But I do agree that we want to incentivize people painting, and I do think that having incentives for people painting, such as prizes, I know that one event did it where they, if your army was fully painted, you automatically got a prize, regardless of whether you won a painting competition or not.
That's cool.
And
yeah.
There were other ones where it was if you have a fully painted army, you were like higher in priority for prizes. So like if there was a prize going to XYZ people, then the people who were fully painted were first in that list. So there are things like that as well. But yeah, it's definitely from a game kind of origins perspective.
Did you have a fully painted army, Nicolas?
Yes.
There we go, you see?
Yeah, I
You deserve
would
the win.
never. The thing is that I would never go at a tournament with an unpainted unit, except if I just bought it. Like if, for instance, the GCS just arrived the day before a tournament, but I want to fill them. Yes, I could do that, but other than that, I simply want to have all my minis primed and with all different colors and so on. So because simply that's what I enjoy, and I want the trays to be done because I want my army to look good.
Yeah.
I wondered whether you say cohesive, because I think Targ armies are really not cohesive looking, but yeah.
Most of the time they're not. Yeah, I think it's difficult. It's always difficult because there's the hobby aspect, there's the gaming aspect. It's always about marrying them together. And you're never going to find it. You're never going to find a right balance. You've got to remember that a lot of Games Workshop, and I will straight up say this, that Games Workshop are not a game creator. I think people forget that sometimes. Games Workshop / Citadel are a model maker. They make models, and then they create rule sets to run the models in. They do that a lot. They actually, most of the time, sculpt and create models first and then write the rules for them. So with that in mind, GW have always had, and when I say always, they've always had a painting requirement for like 30 plus years, because that's what they were established from back when it was Citadel and Games Workshop, independent companies. But yeah, that's it's obviously very different now. But yeah, it's good. It's interesting. There was another thing that people had asked in chat, and I've just completely glossed over it. So if it comes back to me, it comes back to me. But all right then. So on to the actual lists. Now, Nicolas, I know you have discussed this at length. Targs. Now, I'm going to point out what I see, and you can then shout at me afterwards for being, yeah, you're completely wrong, or be like, yeah, that's about it, right?
Yeah, I'm curious to have your analysis. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So I personally, I will straight up say this, I don't think I like this list. And there's one reason and one reason only. Get to that in a second. But this list is basically, and it's not, but it's basically very similar to what I faced at the US National Tournament. The US National Final, Drogo Screamers, Drogon Rhaegal, and then GCS. Now, in his version, in Benesh's version, I think he ran Unburnt, he ran Tycho at 5, obviously, and then Illyrio at 4, so swapping the neutral and Targ 5 and 4 pointers around. The Tycho doesn't help massively, and the Illyrio doesn't help massively to the burst sign of strategies, which is the best way of killing dragons anyway. So I can understand why you've gone for the Barriss and Varys combo over that. I do think it's an improvement. The thing in this list that I still cannot get my head through is GCS. And I'll let you think about why GCS in a second while I answer quickly Ruthnik's comment in chat about what does TP, SP, and UD mean. Very quickly, Ruthnik, TP is tournament points. That's 3 for a win, 1 for a loss, 0 for a resignation. Don't resign in tournaments. And 2 for a draw. SP is secondary points. You get this based on how much you win by. So if a crushing win, that's a difference of 5 or more VPs, or wiping your opponent out, or them resigning, gets you 4 secondary points. A standard, which is 3 or 4 victory point differences, is 3 secondary points. Your opponent gets 1. And a narrow win, which is a win of 0, 1, or 2 victory points, gets you 2 secondary points, and your opponent would get 2. If you lose, it would be 2, 1, or 0, depending on the level of loss. And if you resign, it's still 0. So what do we say about resigning? Don't resign. Better to just play a game out or be like, look, this is game over. How many points are you going to score? Quickly just tot up how many more points your opponent's going to score, and do it that way, which is very similar to resigning, but importantly is not resigning, because you can be like, actually, yeah, you'd have killed this unit. There's some more UDs for your opponent. I don't think any competitive player, and certainly no players here, would be like, okay, we're going to deliberately now play this out for 20 minutes once you know you've lost, but also, don't want to give you a resign, because it does matter occasionally when you play certain matchups, because it's not your own position, it's actually your own position relative to other people. Bear that in mind. UDs is the number of unit points destroyed. Nice and simple. Right then, Nicolas. GCS. Why?
Why not?
He's hit me with the Uno reverse swap there, hasn't he?
No, but there is a real why not. There is a real reason for them to be there.
I'm guessing it's because you want a 7-point, for want of a better term, heavy infantry that you're always going to use the defensive order on, just to make them hard to kill.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's as simple as that. That's literally I only use the offensive order if people are attacking me at some point, are not attacking me, and when I'm free, like last activation or this kind of thing. But other than that, I literally always use the defensive order, and they are the anvil. So I can literally put them in the middle of the enemy line. They have 3+4+. They are tanky, very tanky, and I can play around by just dancing with my units.
Now, this might be me being a heathen, right? And I do see why. I understand why GCS, right? Could Hedge Knights not do the job very similarly while also being like cavalry?
No, because I consider them obviously, but the thing is that I'm afraid of their morale, and
Okay.
I feel like the GCS can really, take a lot of things. The thing is that I'm always playing with cross pile on the table, because dragons, so that makes them 8 morale. The Hedge Knights, if you improve, it is 7 with the bags, but I don't play the bags match. Wow. And I don't even want to claim the bags because I have Varys. So overall, it makes no sense for me to try to play around bags. So Hedge Knights are as resilient as dervishes.
Okay. I guess it would make more sense with the old Iron Resolve on them as well for that panic modifier. Now that they've lost Iron Resolve, do you still think it's going to be GCS in that slot? Still over anything else?
It is debatable, and I think that you could argue for instance, Screamers and Jorah. That might be interesting. Might also be Outriders and Jorah. Might be good because Jorah is so amazing.
Yeah, the tactical reposition with the Outriders for effectively a 5-inch shift when you need it, or a 2-inch shift forward and followed by a 3-inch shift back is probably how you're going to use it more often. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And it gives you a ranged unit, which you don't currently have in the list, right? You don't actually have a ranged threat, which does mean that the list is weak to always being engaged. There's the whole thing with Barristan inclusion. Final Strike is a problem. So you need to have the Barristan on the right units to prevent the Final Strikes being dangerous. So yeah, no, it's interesting.
In my second game, my Barristan opponent had 2 final strikes in his hand. So literally, he burned the first one on my first attack, and obviously I cancelled it with Barristan, and then I took the second one. We were round 2, and I was.
Bugger. My unit is now half dead.
That was painful.
Yeah. No, cool. Did you want to talk about your second list? Because you didn't really use it that much.
I used it only once when it was the right moment, because I literally crafted the second list for Hound and Ready, and I used it on Hound and Ready. And so I wanted a range unit, obviously. I wanted the Screamers with Jorah for the tactical reposition, so that I could shift out of the objective after having scored to avoid double tap. And I wanted 3 cavalry units because I needed to be 3, let's say, dragons or cavalry units to be sure that I was mobile. And I needed Danny to prevent to play the counterplots. So overall, it did what it was supposed to do. The thing is that not reading your cards is a pretty bad idea, and so I was reading Targ Supremacy during the game, and I realized that it was only when engaged melee, but I saw that it was when engaged melee and when attacking Danny's unit. But no, it's only when you're engaged with Dany that it triggers the second effect. And so I was, oh, damn.
Yeah. They did this card dirty. I don't know why they made it so much worse than normal supremacy, really. And it is just it's just Targaryen supremacy on Dany, but rather than it being an order, you now need the card, and on all of the other units, it's like a panic test.
No, it's not even that. It's Targaryen supremacy, but if you are shooting on Dany,
exactly.
you don't even take the wounds.
Yeah. It's just terrible, isn't it? It's just awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, well. Rip Dany.
Overall, yeah. I did what I was supposed to do with that list. I had Illyrio instead of Dany, obviously, because Dany was the commander. And so Illyrio was there for the sustain with Varys and with Barristan. In the end, I could literally do what I wanted to do, which is sustain, take the fights, prolong the fight, and control. So it worked.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Awesome. And
by the way,
yeah?
Just for the first list, the trio of NCUs with Varys, Dany, and Barristan is amazing. Varys is solving a huge pain of this list regarding the, for instance, the pets, which is it is very helpful in the list.
Mm-hmm. I've never seen anyone actually do it as well, but someone takes horses and you use a Varys token at the same time as field control, and you go, now I just do 6 inches of movement forward, which is like a full maneuver out of the middle of nowhere, and everyone's like, what?
I did it several times,
nice.
and I love it.
Yeah. That's what we like to hear. Awesome. Well, there we go. I know that you've got a long essay available on the Stats Discord and on Slavers Bay in the main Discord. We made a thread for it as well for a discussion around list building with Targs. And I know that Carlo kind of had a long conversation with you and put a lot of other stuff with there. A bit of back and forth with you and Carlo kind of really discussing it in detail, which I think is really cool. And I won't spoil that if anyone wants to read it. But if you do want to read it, just drop a message or see the threads in the Song of Ice and Fire Discord for NRG /stats. Cool, awesome. I'm gonna have to interrogate LArks now because I said I would, and also because I've got a bone to pick with him. In case you guys don't know, me and LArks sometimes talk about free folk. Not often, but we do. And we talk for quite some time, and mostly it's me just shouting random drivel at LArks, and he tries to discern some useful information from it. That's usually how it goes. At least it feels that way. I don't know. It's a Steer and Varamir combo. It's the Steer list is a list that I know very well, but he makes 3 changes technically, which I'll kind of berate him about in a second, and a Varamir list which I don't dislike, but again, we'll go through that. Your Steer list has the Steer Thens, Double Trappers, Chariot, great inclusion in my opinion, Val Craster Regret, but you go for the Chosen Steer in the Raiders, and then Weeper with the CDS. Now, what was your kind of thought process behind the Chosen with the Raiders, and then the Cave Dweller Weeper combo?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I really enjoy always talking with you about Free Folk, and I'm glad we have this 3 hours, 3-hour ends about all the stuff. That's great, and it really helped me figuring out what I wanted to do with this tournament and my list there. So, first of all, I think one should say that in comparison to your approach, I guess, I rather rely on my Varamir list as my main. Mm-hmm. So that's so my Steer list is more specialized on certain situations and things that I need to solve. And for me, it's certain game modes, Dance with Dragons, for example, or specific matchups, which is like Starks, Targaryens, where I really want to maximize in grinding, counter punch, and this kind of approach. And what I found in a couple of games, also against Night's Watch for some matchups, if you take the normal 8 activation list, for example, they have 2 solos that can really hurt Free Frog, and munch up all your animals if you play Varamir. Then and I feel it's kind of hard to remove them. And Chosen of Styr might seem not like an obvious pick in general, but I feel like the additional runes in addition to traps and Final Strike and against solos, that really adds up, and you can do sneaky things with obviously healing and so on, so to really maximize the value that you get out of it. And for me, it's a useful tech piece in these situations. And second question was about CDS, right?
CDS Weeper combo.
Yeah. Okay. A Weeper is a little bit controversial, maybe, but the idea behind the CDS unit basically is having something that if you cannot remove it in one go, it will really hurt you, either with just Final Strike, or because they simply punch back at you with Overwhelming or something, and they can really, really do the damage. And Weeper adds to that with Vicious, and as we discussed at length, like one obvious meta drawback of Free Frog is token play, and Weeper can do that. So I kind of thought it might be useful, and it was. Like, the unit is really dangerous, and like if you position well, they only have bad options. They have Steward's unit, they have Raiders with Chosen of Styr, and CDS to charge into. Yeah, good luck. So
I know that we obviously spoke as well, and it's the difficult moment as well in Free Frag list building at the moment. I think you can call it that, which is the inclusion of the chariot, which I know that you didn't need much convincing on why to have it, but you still weren't sure. How did you find the chariot in the event? Because that's obviously one of the big things for you, which is a departure, I think, from your normal standard gameplay, but very much into what I like doing at the moment.
I mean, for me, it was rather coming back to an old style, which I played at one year ago, because the chariots were like pretty common, so to speak.
4-point chariots.
So I know what I got there and how it's used and so on, and why it's valuable, and it still is for 5 points. So I was happy about the inclusion. But like, if you see the overall architecture or structure of the list, now it's like really, in comparison to what you bring, it's a little bit more risky, I would say. And but I found, like, I found that's a good thing, because I need to, as a player and the player character, I need to practice more with this kind of list. So yeah, I went for it.
That's fair.
And didn't regret it. It was very, very important, and I played a Free Frog Mirror in DVD, Styr vs. Styr, and I had really direct comparison, because they had and Chieftain, Reyes Chieftain, and so on. So I also saw in a live comparison what this does and how hard it is to play around it and so on. But yeah, I managed to win that game, and Chariot was a big part of it.
Yeah, I think the Chariot is, although they were busted at 4, at 5, they're now no longer something spammable, which is good. They shouldn't ever really have been that way. But they're I like them, but it's the weakness, isn't it? We talk about the Scorpion weakness that you introduce, which is kind of worth it in the long run against a lot of the other stuff. Varamir, then we see Varamir Shadow Cat Wolf pack, obviously with Mag the Mighty. So this is a Varamir Mag list, which is kind of almost builds itself a little bit. We see Val Craster obviously coming in, but the main difference here is you go for double Trapper Cave Dweller Mance. We sometimes see triple Trapper, or like double Trapper Raider, or double Raider Trapper, whatever, some combination of the 4-pointers. And then we sometimes see Mance 2-pointer enemy attachment. We see the 5-point version with the CDS and double Trappers. 10 activations, right?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say this is just your classic 10 activation, let Mag do things at the end of the round and smash people up, and then you've got Mance Deceptive Bard if you ever need to shut anyone's particular unit down, basically?
I mean, yeah, that's kind of name of the game in many games. If opponents let you do that, I would say, in a way. I mean,
Yeah.
not everyone can do something about it, but obviously the hidden gem in this kind of list, which is a control list, and that's why I think 10 activations is important. Because if you want to go for control, then you should have the edge, really. And yeah, so this and the hidden gem obviously is the wolves. So because that's your real control piece, Meg the Mighty and the Wolf is like the obvious tag team. And yeah, 3 trappers. I for myself decided that 2 trappers is a sweet spot. CDS also, they enable some cards in your deck a little bit better. And I think having a great list means that you get the most out of your deck. Yeah, so I'm fine. It's really squishy. You have like 3 infantry units on 6+. They melt like shit. And I played a couple of games Hone and Ready with this list. Man, that's like yeah, that's crazy as hell.
Let's roll a d3, add 2. That's how many wounds you take.
Yeah. So I like it, but it's always a challenge. Every game is a challenge, even though it seems silly to say that with 10 activations. But it can go down south really quick if you mess up. And yeah, and I really love Men's Raider, and I think it's fair for all the Golden Company swordsman lovers to get back at them with a nasty
Get wrecked.
5.2.
No assault orders for you.
No.
No healing. Oh yeah, gotta love it. Cool, awesome. No, yeah, appreciate that. Now we'll go through just quickly. Obviously, talked about the event and kind of like what the event did. But what I want is I want you both to think about the game, and they may be the same answer, which is fine. The game you enjoyed the most, and then the game you found the hardest. Okay? They may not be the same game, they may be the same game. It's up to you. Because sometimes people really enjoy a challenge, sometimes people hate a challenge. Challenges? What are these? I'll let you have a think about that. And while thinking about it, I'll talk about our sponsors this week. No one sponsors this show. Why would anyone sponsor this show? Jesus
Just
Christ.
before we jump into that, I wanted to show this.
Wow.
Because with the light it's not working correctly, but sorry for that.
It's okay.
But it was part of the fact that I won this, and so they gave me the toy. Varys toy.
Actually, Varys. That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing.
And they really tied the challenge to the minifigure or the action figure. That was so cool. And I really was glad because I could swap my voucher I got against a figure that I could give to my son as a present. And yeah, it was a great thing.
That's real cool.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Nicolas. Your games.
I think that it was Felix's.
Okay.
It was probably the sixth games. Sorry for it is hard to say. And I think that it was the most interesting because it was a lot of
So Felix with his jaw Mormon. Okay.
Yeah.
Total Spearman jaw. Watch Captain.
It was very difficult.
Yeah.
But I always characterize Felix because I know him very well, and he's like living in Leipzig, and every tournament, every 2 months, we play against each other. He's a top player with goofy lists, I would say.
Yeah.
And I mean, it all makes sense, and he can explain to you why. But if you look at it from an international viewpoint, you always think like, okay, that's unexpected. But he executes it very well, right, Nicolas?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was really. I think that he did one mistake that gave me the game, but in the end, it was really a matter of me rolling a d3 on the last attack on cold hands, and therefore reaching 10, because otherwise I was in big troubles. And I feel like it was the most interesting game because I was The thing is that Karin is always so strong and can catch let's say save any. It's like the red button to save any situation. I was in his back with a dragon going to do a second attack on one of his units, and then he prevented by just killing Karin. And I was okay, this is going to be hard. And from there it went south for me. But at the very beginning of round 6, round 5, I had kind of a turnaround, and then I could prevail, but it was very, very, very close.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very fun, and Felix is a very nice guy, and it was you knew that, I understood that he was playing very well, even though his list didn't make sense to me from the outside perspective. And then I was facing it, and I got, okay, this makes sense now, and I understand why he with his play style, why he plays this. But overall I was very surprised and pleasantly surprised by how great a player he is, but also great a human. So
that's high praise. You're a great human. No, didn't expect you to say that. So nice. Go on then, LArks.
It was hardest game and the game we enjoyed the most, right?
Yeah, they may be the same. They may be different.
Yeah, okay. For me, it's different. The game I enjoyed the most was again the Free Folk Mirror, because I really found that was a very technical game, and I felt challenged as a player really there, and not because I'm as a Free Folk player or whatever, but as a genuine player in a genuine way. And that was great. That was great fun. And the hardest game was definitely my 5th game against Skunk, I guess. That was a hell of a game. It was around 6. Or was around 6?
I think it was the 6.
Yeah.
The one that you were down. Yeah.
Oh God. That's a little bit of a story. It was Dark Wings, Dark Worlds against a great Night's Watch list, especially for the specific purpose, because it was Melister, and he has some crazy token play, as we all know. And my opponent, who's a long-time veteran and play like hundreds of games, probably the equivalent to us here in Germany, and he was very fond of swapping missions and so on, really cycling through, which is something I normally want to do too. And so the token mission came back, and it was really hard to get a grip. And it was. I thought I lost the game, but I kept playing and tried to squeeze every little advantage I had, and it really came down in the end to trappers charging cold hands, and I had overwhelming assault, and he was like on 3 wounds or something. I think he lost 1 wound, and I needed to kill him, and I did in melee with like 3 or 2 crit blows and Sunring and so on, because I had some animal engaged. And that was so crazy, and I really thought I lucked the game away in the end. But fortune favors the brave, I guess. So I don't know. That was crazy and really the hardest, because it was also a mental thing to just stay in the game when you think, you really see no way for 1 or 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's. I mean, sometimes games like that are really great when it comes down to decision making and realizing that perhaps your best opportunity is to make a charge with a unit that shouldn't really ever be charging anything, you pull out a win, right? It's rewarding. It's rewarding when it feels like you make a good play and get rewarded for it. It's less rewarding when you make dumb plays and get rewarded for it, and that's okay.
It was a necessary play in this sort of situation, yeah.
But I think that's actually one of the things that's so interesting about the final is that, like, we talk about rolling ones, right? And I know people don't like disorderly charges, but the way that you played in the final, Nicolas, was it it would have helped if they weren't ones, obviously, especially with Overrun in hand. But it didn't matter that they were ones, right? It didn't matter because the position you were in, the luck you made for yourself by taking advantage of that situation meant that while and I've played against you a lot to know that you normally get very annoyed when you roll a 1 on the charge, and but you just took it in your stride and you were like, oh god, it's happened again. Let's just keep going. And after the game, you look back on it and certainly from an outside perspective, it almost didn't matter, which is crazy because like the first 4 charges of the game are all ones, but it just didn't matter because you made the right decisions. And that's part of what we talk about when we talk about like making luck for yourself, in that sometimes you don't have to get that lucky. In fact, you can get quite unlucky. As long as you're making good decisions, you'll be fine.
That's definitely what this tournament taught me. But yeah, all of my games were kind of close or very controlled. If you go through through the points, it is 5 minors, 1 standard, and 1 crushing. I think that the ones that I really controlled were the first, not the second because it was kind of a mess. The third, yeah, that was the standard. The fourth, yes, I controlled it. The fifth, control as well. The sixth, not at all. And the seventh, yeah, of course, it was the crushing. So overall, I literally control this to be sure that I wouldn't do a mistake. And I think that over the 7th game, I went 6 times through my entire deck or close to, and that the assault orders arrived in game 2, 3, and 5 as 18th, 19th, or 20th cards.
Nice.
So it was literally a bit of a facepalm moment. And so, yeah, I was fairly unlucky with my Assault Orders card, which is the only one that I want really in my deck. Not the 5th, because it was whatever. I think that this was 2, 3, 4 or something like that. But in the end, the Assault Orders came literally at the end of my deck, and I was very, very annoyed with that. But at the same time, I could manage simply because my list was not in dire need of assault orders all the time, because Danny is a thing, and Danny can allow the attacks. So in the end, I managed to do that. But it's all the dices over the entire tournament were not in my favor most of the time, except the D3s, and I think that these are the ones that matters when you play dragons, I guess, not the disorderly charge or this kind of thing, and also the fact that I could cancel what was really boring, so really annoying, and then
Cool.
If I may add one thing to the general design of the tournament, what I found very cool is that having more rounds than you need, it encourages not going for submarine tactics, which is, I think, fine or very good, and it encourages players to really play their game and play their best. That was something I think could be highlighted. So if you have the chance, from my experience at least, I would also always recommend doing this. People will react probably a little bit skeptical in the beginning. That's what I found. The organizers had really to justify and explain it a lot. But I had it 2 times now during tournaments with very good players, and I think it's healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I prefer it in general, and that's not to say that without it I'm bad or anything like that. But it's the I like the fact that you don't just lose a game and you're out of the running. Like, it might not be in your hands anymore, but like if you can go out there and still perform, you can still do well. And you see this, like, you lost your second game, didn't you, Daniel? And you come away and you still come second in the event as a whole, and you were still competing for that first place in that last game, which meant that the last game was actually still important. And it still puts a level of importance, but especially when we're talking about, like, yes, if you're looking at 2, 3, 4 losses, it's less important for winning the event. But the point there is that you're playing those games because it's important for you, for your performance, so you're enjoying the game and doing what you want to do within the. At the top end, it's very much still much that, but it's also the fact that you're not out of the running, not completely. So it encourages people to play well still, which I think is important. So yeah, it's a double whammy. I think it helps everybody at every level, which is a good thing. Yeah.
I'm just going to add something about that.
Go on.
Because at the very end of my sixth game, I was, it could be done. I could be done there, and I could be 6-0, and I could be the champion. And yeah, okay. And then I went into the seventh just by thinking, yeah, let's go. And then it was, this is going to be a fun one, and it's okay. But I was at the same time a bit, yeah, why am I at the top table playing Targaryens of all factions, where I was, we were discussing this topic 2 weeks before the tournament with Daniel, and we prepared on Clash of Kings. Okay. The thing is that we played together Clash of Kings simply to provide a valuable challenge to Daniel, because I knew that I would never reach the finals with my list and with my faction, and that I would, there was literally no chance for me to be there against him. And in the end, I reached the finals, but not against the same player as envisioned. But in the end, it was still Targaryen Free Folk in Clash of Kings on the last game. So I was, okay, let's go. But I think that I would have a sour taste in the mouth if I hadn't won the tournament with the seventh game. But at the same time, would have did I deserve to win if I didn't win the last game? Probably not. So yeah, in the end, it didn't happen. So it's simply to tell that, I might have a different vision than you guys have if I didn't win the last game. But overall,
you did, and that's what matters. But yeah, you got there. And who'd have thought you practiced that final match, and it was Daniel, the one who didn't make it. He's rubbish, that's why. Right. Fantastic. Well, I'm glad the German Nationals was great. I think that's 2 years in a row where they managed to put on strong events that have shown that there's room for growth, room for the game to continue growing in Germany, and of course surrounding areas as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having Ilya and Yannick and Ilya back on.
Oh, you should really encourage them, please, to do the stream next year in English, because I asked Yannick about it and he says, oh, nobody wants to hear my English and so on. And I think we should all encourage them to just do a stream in English next year.
What they actually need to do is they need to have an English one and a German one. There you go. That's the way to do it.
Who could it be? Yeah.
But yeah, no, that'll just get someone to type in translations very quickly, which is a thing you can do now apparently on YouTube Live. So yeah, no, it'd be cool. It'd be really cool. And I mean, they're great guys anyway, the pair of them. And also the other, it wasn't just them organising. Of course, there were some other organisers as well. But yeah, it was really great, and I'm glad it went well as well.
By the way, if I'm not mistaken, in most communities, so in French community, it is streamed in French.
Yeah.
In Germany, it is streamed in German. In Spain, did they stream?
It's difficult because I don't know if they did actually stream I know there was some recorded stuff. The thing is, Spanish nationals didn't really have a nationals this year. They had the various different
right.
they had the different GTs, kind of. So there wasn't one national event, from what I can tell. Trust me, I've been trying to look. But yeah, like there's a lot of GTs and big events, and they've got streamed games and recorded stuff from those definitely. But they're
And
usually in
at
Spanish.
LGT, nobody
Had
was commenting, so
Yeah, they didn't have commentary this year, but it was recorded all by Rotterdam White
yeah,
Skulls. So
yeah, and they did it in English, so yeah, okay.
the big one that we missed out on is of course Poland. Poland didn't have any streamed or recorded games, which is a big shame. Which is the biggest event obviously so far. Yeah. All right then. Should we talk about the other hot topic, which everyone's been like, why have you not talked about this yet? Why am I talking about this event? Why are you not talking about the coolest thing on the block? Which is the rules changes that we've seen basically on day one, right? Day one release changes for Neutral Hero Box 3. This is the full list, so bear with me here. Neutrals. So, essentially, they put a Facebook post out and they put the post itself as 3 changes, and then they mostly highlight it as 2 changes. Mostly. And then there is another offshoot problem as well, which we'll talk about. But basically, Jockin has been changed, along with Arya and Sandor Clegane. Now, the first one is the nice one that everyone kind of said straight away would happen anyway, which is Sandor Clegane's order on Threaten got changed to the same order as everyone else's on Threaten, so now it's the same trigger that everyone else had before. So it's not really a change, it's just what we expected, I guess. 1 point Threaten. Are you taking 1 point Threaten?
In Stormcore Mercs, yes.
In Stormcrow Mercs. Okay. Sure. Yeah, you're not taking 1 point Threaten most of the time, though. It's not. And then they made another change, but they veiled it as 1 change, and it's actually 2 changes, right? Arya now only kills infantry attachments. So they changed Arya, the names on the list ability, is only infantry attachments. But the other change, did you see the other change that they actually secretly did as well and didn't really mention it?
Were they tied together before?
No, they weren't.
Okay, yeah.
So they made it so you have to take Sandor 1 point Threaten to access 1 point Arya with very good Assassinate ability, kind of very good Assassinate ability. And they can't be played in the same unit now. Well, they couldn't before anyway, but like they can't now either. So you're now talking about running a minimum of 3 infantry units, which is, they could be melee, I guess, but like you need a Sandor unit, which could be a ranged unit. You need a commander unit, which for most factions is going to be on foot. And then you need an Arya Stark, which has to be an infantry unit, and to be honest, probably has to be a melee unit to get any value out of her ability.
Yeah, it's like weird, right? It's a split up version of Vago maybe or something, and it makes it really awkward to play, which is probably what the community likes because then you don't see this as often. For me, it's like mind-boggling why they don't make changes so that it's possible to kill mounted attachments. Like that's not a hard thing to do, and it feels for me very unlogic that you cannot assassinate somebody because he's on a horse. Like that's, I don't see. I mean, there would be ways to easy ways, I guess, to just make a distinction between the attachment and the cavalry model, right? That's not that hard to do, and that they still are reluctant to do it. I don't know. I think that's really weird.
They could have easily put something in the rules or in the game that remove the model but replace it with a model.
For example, Yeah.
I do know why they've not done that in some regard, right? Because they probably thinking about people actually having, all the way back to our painted discussion actually, is that people might not actually have that other non-attachment model. There are ways around that, of course. You just move to the standard thing you do at tournaments. If you do not have the spare model and you've brought a unit back, for example, it's not meant to have attachments. You just put the attachment at the back as the first wound, basically.
Yeah, there are ways to represent the situation or
Yeah.
to solve the situation. Yeah, if you wanted to, you could. And I think it's just a weird design choice in my mind. Nothing has nothing to do with the meta or anything, but I don't know. I never understood that, and but it seems to be a conscious decision, which makes sense from what you say. But I still think it's a weird component, and as some for someone just coming into the game, it might seem odd.
Yeah.
But in general, I think now, do we see them at all?
Maybe.
I never thought that Aya like if you could pay 1 point just for Aya, I don't think that's a strong play. From my point of view.
I mean,
it's probably on the upper end, but it's not like auto include or anything. What people said.
there's only 2 factions I can think that want to use this, and one faction won't get use out of it. And I think Baratheons might want to use this, because putting out weakened tokens of Baratheon means they can really limit those Lance Cav charges, which is the one thing that Baratheons still don't really like to see. They already have a lot of token play, so it's not that strong, but it is something, I guess. And then they might pick up Arya because it allows them to play these grind styles against enemy attachments absolutely fine. But
Yeah.
I just feel like you're playing into what Baratheons want to do, which is actually fine, but your opponent is already not playing that style. So I just feel like it's not really good. Maybe Greyjoy is accessing threatened to limit their Lance Cav charges on their units, so they can almost guarantee silence men surviving charges.
But they tend to have good attachments, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and they don't have
hard
many
competition.
slots. Yeah, so a Targ's gonna use these things, Ennis?
Dragons cannot use attachments, right? So
No, dragons can't. That would be amazing.
I was checking a list with Marcelin, and they could use it with kind of a meme in with Sander in Mercs to have a decently tanky unit. And the thing is that you can put Arya in Brazen Beasts to Sentinel when people attack and kill the Freedmen. So you countercharge before the Search Force or before any overrun because of Sentinel. So you put yourself behind the Freedmen and then you countercharge and then you nuke the attachment because when we're in quest lost, so you have 1 token, so you can kill instantly so there is a meme around that, and you can have with Missandei, Varys, Illyrio, and 2 unit of freedmen, so you can pull out a meme, interesting meme.
Yeah, I have to admit, that's one of those things where it's you look at someone sets it up on the board, and as a half decent player, you look at that and go, "That's bait." that right there is bait. I am not gonna do that thing, and you get shot and you die, and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna send." Oh, crap. But yeah, no, it's I do something similar, right? I set up lists stuff like that all the time, and I'm like, look, if you can see what this is gonna do from a mile away, you're going to beat this. But that's not the point. Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling to see where this sees play. I think you'd run Sandor in a Vargo list in neutrals.
Yeah, makes sense.
I can almost see Arya making those lists as well because you can, but also I just think Vargo neutral lists aren't very good. So why are you running?
Yeah, I mean, killing attachment is neat and all, but that doesn't win you the game.
No, it doesn't.
In itself. So
and
I don't know.
And the strength of a Vargo or the strength of a Bloody Mama list is not its infantry. Surely the strength of a Bloody Mummer list is having you in a Bloody Mummer cavalry that have a bit more oomph to them. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold, unfortunately. I think Arya went from being potentially heavily picked a lot, even if she's not very strong, but just picked a lot.
Yeah.
To being now rarely sees play at all. Another attachment that's been consigned to the heap of obscurity. Right then. The last change is in the tactics card. And I love how they just say change to Brothers in Arms. They don't actually tell you what the changes are in the errata changes.
Slight change. Yeah.
The change log. Yeah, slight change. Just a small change. Brothers in Arms has had a significant change. It's not. Oh, it's not in there. It's in the tactics card. Brothers in Arms. This is huge, by the way. This is like actually straight up huge. It can now only be attached to Stormcrow unit. And more importantly, Jockeying Commander and the Widower 0-point vassal attachment he brings, neither of them have Stormcrow affiliation. So this is going on to a unit of Stormcrow Archers, a unit of Stormcrow Mercenaries, or a unit of Stormcrow Dervishes. Cool. The power level of this card basically they took the power level of this card and they just put it in the toilet. Now, I still think Jockin is good because of his other two cards, right? I still think Jockin is a playable commander, still very competent, good. And Stormcrow Archers, with Jockin in them and this card, are still not bad, right?
Yep. That's what I thought too.
But in what factions can you run Stormcrow Archers and not really afford to run GCS in their current state? Maybe like Targs, obviously, right? Nicolas leaning in there, being like, "Come on, let me get." There was one other faction I thought might benefit from this, maybe, and that's Stormcrow Archers in a Renly side Baratheon list with Jockeying Commander, because they don't have a long range option otherwise, right?
Yeah, and I think I can see them maybe in Starks. Why not?
Maybe. Yeah, the debate over this or Bowman, right?
Yeah, sure, but like you can play some if you have good you don't really need GCS that hard, I think. So you can go with Cav and some other sneaky support units. You can have the vulnerable from your trackers and so on. So I mean, not gonna say that this is meta or anything, but I found that what they did to this card was not the worst decision that they could have made.
No.
I think I was kind of surprised, I gotta say, in a good way.
Yeah. The problem is it's curved the power level of the card based on the fact that the units aren't very good, right? Like, so this is semi-problematic in like if you can find a good way of making good use of like actual good use, of course, for Stormcrow Mercs, Stormcrow Archers, or Dervishes, then this card actually goes up in power just by nature of the units getting better. However, you know, Martin, they're saying Martells can have Royal Guard instead of GCS in order to take Stormcrows. Yeah, definitely true. There's one problem, which I don't know if either of you two know the problem, which is the Scorpion problem, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
They didn't fix.
With Jera, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I had in my local group. Like 2 minutes after the change. Like, oh, they didn't fix it. Yeah.
We were at a Games Club on Friday, and the changes literally got announced while we were on the way to the club, and I was like, they haven't fixed that properly. That's jaw.
But at the same time, it's such a niche case where I have hope that people agree on not doing it in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's also it's also like, how many points do you have to make this score? Because in case people don't know the combo, in case you're not aware,
you should explain probably. Yeah.
the Brothers in Arms can't be attached to anything but a Stormcrow unit. However, Jaw, his once per game ability, simply states, when Jaw claims a zone, you replace the zones with effect. Take one tactics card that can be attached to a unit from your discard pile and attach it to a friendly Night's Watch unit. Stormcrow or Brothers in Arms can be attached to a unit, what its ability is, and therefore Jaw's ability to attach it to a friendly Night's Watch unit kicks in. You could attach Brothers in Arms to a Scorpion from the discard pile once per game. Now, arguably that is weaker, obviously, than it was before, because you don't get use of both of them. It's only ever going to be one. But actually, it's kind of stronger as well, because you've got to remember, Scorpions at 2+ means you're never going to drop it anyway, and you actually can just discard the card. Now, you can even, with things like Battle Plan from Sam, you can use Brothers in Arms if it's in your hand to discard it for something better, or go and get it in round 1 to discard it at the end of round 1 to draw it round 2, or to play it round 2 with Jaw. However, it is a zone replace effect from Jaw, so just remember that it is a tempo losing effect. Like, I still think what it creates in the end is very strong. I think the amount of points you're now putting behind this combo to get it, and yes, it's going to be consistent, it's always going to be there in round 2, guaranteed. I just think it might be a lot of resources to bring this one powerful Scorpion online. That's not to say it's not a problem, but I think it's just a lot of work. And Simon may just come along and edit this and say, actually, it can't be attached to Night's Watch units because it says Stormcrow only. FAQ/errata it, and like it just, the loophole closes like literally in seconds. But they haven't yet, so this is what people are discussing.
But I mean, hey, it's pretty obvious that this goes against the intention. Obviously, execution should be flawless. Okay. But I mean, let's maybe appreciate for a second that they kind of were responsive in the situation in a way that we a couple of years ago or whatever wouldn't even dream of. So yeah. I think if it's a thing, it would be for a small period only. It's pretty obvious exploitation, and if people need to do that, let them do that.
Yeah, it's one of the things, isn't it? Like, I'd love to see it get ruled on, just because. I don't think this is what they intended. But this actually goes back to, unfortunately, a bit of negativity from me, which I know people love. My problem was always is the rhetoric, right? In that we saw this within seconds of this box is being released, that hang on, this isn't right, or like this is too strong. The exact wording on their Facebook post, unfortunately, with specific regards to Neutral Hero Box 3, we had 3 instances of cards printed with missing and/or incorrect wording. And I was like, well, the missing bit on Aria, like, that seems like very bad quality control to have an entire box missing on a printed card. Missing off the word infantry in Aria's text, while I still don't think that's okay, I actually can see that one potentially getting through a quality check pass, because it would be something that people genuinely just weren't looking properly at a specific word missing, right? So like, I'm not giving them like an okay green card, that's fine, but like, that could have been a genuine mistake, and human error does happen. The missing or incorrect wording on Jockin's Brothers in Arms, there's no way that was an incorrect word or set of words, right? Like, I don't believe that for one.
Let them keep their face, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't let them out of their responsibility to deliver a good product, and I'm completely on your side. This could be completely avoided by engaging in a different way with the community. beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. But the company that we know and love, I think it's still an improvement. Small,
It is.
marginal maybe, but yeah.
And it's brought up the actual ever-growing conversation, which I think is still very pressing and very relevant. And also, I mean, another problem, right? There's a few things that have been created because of this, which is the conversation again is now, well, actually, like, it's fine if the cards are outdated for most people. Most people are not going to be that bothered that the cards are outdated a little bit. Because either it doesn't affect them or it does and they'll just have other ones. But actually, what you're seeing is that now people are saying, well, you've said you're going to bring a print-on-demand service. This has been something you've offered a few times now. Where is this? Because, like, it is now getting a little bit silly that we buy a product on day one and we basically just ignore the cards in the box at this point. And I know that's not true for all of the cards, but, like, there's now been a precedent with Hunters, with this box. There was another box, wasn't there, I think, that had a similar issue. Like, there's now been a few iterations of things that just released, and apparently the printing on them is just wrong. And the weird thing about this, for me, as an outsider looking in, these were never an issue, like 2 years ago, a year ago, at all. Whereas now we've had like 2 or 3 releases almost in a row where they've had problems in the production and what they have on the cards. And is this really a production error, or is this actually things being missed off in design, card design? And is it not the factories, it's CMON fucking something up? I don't know. But for me, print on demand, right? Print on demand couldn't come soon enough. Because I think what they're proving here is that they need to have the service available for players.
Yes.
Or, as people have been saying, update packs. And I know the last update packs, when we had them, unfortunately went down badly because they weren't that expensive, but they got released and like 2 or 3 weeks later, after they finally got delivered to people in most places, the new update was out. We saw that with the holographic cards. When they did those, they got released.
Oh, yeah.
Most people got them after the update had changed, so the cards were unusable.
Oh, God. Yeah.
You know, if you were playing the latest updates. It's difficult because you want them to get it right, but also you don't mind errors. Like, it's okay that errors sometimes happen. I think it's just like, you expect a lot of these errors to be caught in QC. You really do. And just admit it. Sometimes I think it's just, they have admitted it here. They say, we apologize for these errors making their way into the printed box. Hey, at least they admit it's an error.
Yeah, and now if we add some learning out of the error, so like making something out of it, maybe there is room for hope. But once again, not gonna sit here and defend Simon or anything. Like that was a screw up, no doubt.
Yeah.
But like I think the end result that we got here is with the one loophole. And once again, like I'm totally fine with someone playing rules as written. Like not get me wrong. They should fix it. They should address it. But I think it's pretty clear what they were aiming for, and that's okay for me. And I think the end product for this box will not shake up and destroy the game or anything. I think it will be a nice commander, which is probably strong in certain specific factions that might need a power boost anyway. So, hey, let's see and explore the commander, I guess.
Yeah, definitely agree there. There was one last thing I was going to mention off the back of this, and it is, unfortunately, the only bad news, and this isn't necessarily Simon's fault, so I don't know whose responsibility this last piece is, but one of the things that for a long time was considered a very useful tool, and it still is to a lot of players, War Council. War Council is considered great, and the last few updates have not served War Council well. Ironically, of all things, since they started moving to not using the assets, which is funny because the assets are now what's wrong. Since they've moved away from using assets, there are now more problems on War Council than ever. And if you haven't seen Neutral's Hero Box 3 on War Council, my god, it is a mess. Raw Rorsch doesn't have one of his abilities, right? He's literally like I think he's missing elusive escape off his card. He's only insight for 2 points or something like that. Jockin has the Widower 0-point attachment that you get with Jockin Commander has Jockin's Protector, which is like insane, obviously, for 0 points.
Yeah, that's something I cannot understand from a working perspective. Like everyone who has a job and delivers a product. I mean, you have a physical card, and you have like it's not. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there is a limit to my understanding at this point. Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
It means the way that the app works is based off CSV files that they upload and kind of things all this, which just means that someone's like, and I know this sounds really kind of obvious because many of us here working in the real world know that this happens all the time, but it literally means someone can't fill in an Excel spreadsheet properly. That's literally what this means.
Yeah.
And while
Yeah, vessels protector text also was
Yeah.
mentioned. Yeah, it's so. Oh god! Like out of the, I don't know how many mistakes are logically possible. They hit kind of a few. Yeah.
Yeah, they hit a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is that like, again, we all know businesses that can't fill in Excel spreadsheets properly. We've probably got colleagues who've made mistakes on Excel spreadsheets. God, we've probably made mistakes on bloody Excel spreadsheets and CSV files, right? Everyone here has probably done this kind of stuff. So like, it's actually completely understandable that something like this would be missed. But it's the number of them that have been missed. It's like a proper mess.
And especially after you had such an incident where you had to correct yourself,
Yeah.
one might think that you would allocate some, some special, I don't know, being very careful with what you do there, because people will look at it for sure.
Yeah, and they will. That's kind of what our job is for, right? But anyway, yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is.
There is just one thing about the printing on demand that I want to circle back
go on.
over because I didn't want to interrupt the discussion about choking. But I think that there is one thing that we need to consider in the printing on demand ask from the community is that the quality demand is going to be higher when the printing on demand is going to be released, because for instance the community is not going to be okay to receive outdated cards when they can ask maybe kind of for free to Simon for maybe 50 cents or whatever a pound to get the correct card delivered. And so it is going to be to represent a huge burden, financial burden for the company to correct the mistakes. And so it is going to be, from an entrepreneurial point of view and from a company management point of view, not a good choice for them to release the printing on demand, because it is it is simply not smart to have people being able to ask for cards, because for instance, I ordered a Heroes Box 3. I demand to have updated cards, not having outdated cards from the day one. And so because of that, I think that it is a major risk for them from company management point of view.
I would be incredibly interested to understand who their card producer was, because one of the things that we saw them release at US Nationals, still got some here that haven't been given away yet, but things like the neutral card pack updates, right? So I got the Season 3 card pack update. Now, this only has the stuff in it for Season 3, which is annoying, because it means you don't have Season 1 and Season 2 represented in real cards. But they could. I mean, Stuff like this doesn't take that long to produce. That's not to say that it's short, that's not to say that it's easy, but it doesn't take that long to produce. And if an update is ready for like 2 or 3 months, you should be able to get card producers who make these kinds of cards in different hubs across the world, which again is something, it's just a whole sourcing exercise here that Mapsnet needs to be done. And actually, what is interesting that Evan says there is that the US National Season 3 packs were printed locally. Yes, so these were printed locally to the US, right? So this could be something that they look to set up in different countries, and not necessarily every country, of course, would have access to this. But if they had this ability, and then these were orderable through Asmodee, you could just buy an update pack for the year or for that season, and it only took them about a month to 2 months to produce. They could prepare all this before releasing the update, send it all out there, get them done, and then you could literally just buy an update pack like that and go, right, I've got everything I need, and this maybe's cost me £5-10, €5-10, whatever, from Asmodee, and I got the stuff that I needed to get for my faction, because some of the stuff's not that much. Maybe they sell a few factions together or do bundles or whatever, I don't know, but I feel like that would be a much better way of doing it, because you could easily do that for every competitive season update. And that's very similar to what effectively Games Workshop have done with what do they call it now? Oh, chapter approved. Chapter approved, which is the GW kind of take on the competitive scene. And I'm not suggesting here that I want CMON to go down the route of like chapter approved and the kind of mess that is. But like, you could do this, and you could probably have it to be a small money maker on the side. It doesn't have to be much, but it could probably turn a profit as well for the business. And I think people would do it. I think people would buy these. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, they're cool,
Yeah,
and it's
fair.
nice to have them. Right? My question to you would be, if you went to the US, or you knew someone, if you knew these existed prior to going to the US, would you pay somebody who you knew was going and bringing them back, potentially? Would you pay them to pick up an extra set for your faction? And if you would, what would you pay them? €5, €10 to pick up something like this? I think you would.
I think that, yeah.
Yeah.
Between 5 and 10, probably, with the updates, counting that it is taking 6 months for them to update. And if I could have them, yeah, at the time of the release, yeah.
Yeah.
I would really miss the tradition of sitting here night before a tournament and cutting out all this stuff. But yeah, I might do that too. Yeah.
So that's the thing, right? I'm not saying the market's huge, but like there is a market there, and I think we probably would, because it's nice to have the real cards. You forget, I think, what it's like to play with real cards when you're so used to playing with printouts and kind of like low quality stuff, and it makes a big difference, right? So yeah. And yeah, people saying they could be manufactured regionally, which will lower distribution time and also increase manufacturing speeds as well, because you probably, if they're locally produced, you're probably going to be using facilities that are smaller and or less popular. So the backlog production time is going to be much less, because for some factories, when they talk about producing stuff, can have like 6 month backlog times. So you're waiting 6 months for something to be produced, which is probably what CMON are doing currently with the production. The stuff like this was probably put to print or put to the factory 6 months ago.
How do they do it in Poland?
They get the resources through the door. War Factory get the boxes, and I believe they unpack them and repack them with the Polish copies.
And the Polish copies, where do they come from?
They're produced by War Factory.
Okay, so yeah, that's locally produced.
Yeah, so it's completely locally done. So it's definitely possible. War Factory literally do it. So yeah.
Solved. Here's a bit of business advice. Yeah, we won't charge anything. So
well, I mean,
just take.
If CMON really wanted to actually be very sensible, they could get an easy win in Europe by getting War Factory to do German, French, and Spanish and Italian versions of the cards and the update packs locally. You could even get them to do the UK ones. People are used to buying from Poland anyway. But
everyone is, right? So, like,
exactly, yeah. But like, this is
Yeah.
my point. Like, you could easily cover your big international European languages
Yep.
and the update packs with just War Factory alone. And that would be an easy win. So if Simon are listening, do that. Like, honestly, you will gain so much kudos from the community for that alone. Go a long way.
We will have an entire episode, just about this. Maybe.
This is the production time. This is how you need to do it.
Yeah, get some incentive out for them. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right then. Well, we are nearing our 2 hour time window, which I'm trying to stick to a bit more rigorously. I appreciate you both joining me today. Who says everyone in the EU orders their stuff from Poland? Everyone in the EU orders stuff from Poland. Everyone practically in the world at one moment in time was ordering stuff from Poland. Poland has a surprisingly consistent delivering rate as well. Like, if you order something, you know it's going to arrive, and you can almost pinpoint exactly when it's going to arrive. It's pretty good. Ironically, it's better to order in Poland than it is from Asmodee. I hate Asmodee. I hate them so much. So, Timo asked a good question. Finish off the episode. From all the A Song of Ice and Fire units and NCUs, how much or how big a percent is playable in a competitive setting?
That's an important question. Yeah.
Yeah, what is competitive?
Yeah. I think if you're being very brutally honest, competitive setting we means like actually putting into lists. Most factions, there are probably only 3 or 4 units at max in most factions that you truly are never considering. Like, they just immediately are like, no, just don't bother. I can't.
You sure?
Yeah, I genuinely think, because if you think like most factions, I don't have any unit stats. You may have to submit a game, team. If you haven't submitted a game, Timu, then you won't be able. I keep saying Timu, it's probably Timo. I don't know. If you haven't submitted a game on stats, you won't be able to find the stats for them. But they are all available through the Power Rankings tab. Actually, there was one thing I was going to cover. That was it. Right. You know how Golden Company Swordsman got nerfed? Carlo put up November stats for units. Okay. And in November, their play rate went up in neutrals, but I take neutrals with a bit of a grain of salt. Their win rate went down slightly in Lannister. Okay. Their win rate went up significantly in Stark, which is, they had a bad October. But what's actually more interestingly is they've gone up to the highest they've ever been in Stark, which is weird. So GCS have gotten better in Starks. GCS have dropped to 58% for Night's Watch, which is slightly lower than their Season 3 average. They're not reaching the 67 or 64% they have seen in previous months. In Baratheon, they've gone up to 51% win rate, which is the best they've ever done in Season 3. After the nerfs in Targaryen. Okay, 41 games. The sample sizes here are tiny, really. But they've gone up to 56, which is the best they've ever performed in Targs. In Greyjoys, they've gone up to 65.5% win rate, which is the best they've ever performed in Greyjoy. And yes, in Martell, they've gone up to 63.5%. That is a
mission accomplished.
They are performing. They are winning percentagely more games than they have ever won in like 5 factions of the game.
Who could have known? Yeah.
Oh. Now, I will add this, right? there is a chance that a lot of the games in November may or may still not have the
Yeah.
they may still be using the older version of GCS in some events, right?
So we will see an even higher increase during the next month, you mean?
We'll see, right? We will we like we might literally see they may go down, and if they do go down, then it probably was just there's a weird mix where people are playing them with rerolls and some people are playing them sundering Iron Resolve, and I don't know. I mean, their pick rate's dropped. Their pick rate has dropped through the floor. They are picked about half as often as they used to be picked. Games are generally down in November slightly from October, so you can't just go off the raw numbers. But if you look at the pick rates, you can see, Night's Watch 38% down to 11, 26 down to 13 in Targ, 32 to 14. It's a significant drop in play rate across the board. But interestingly, not win rate. If anything, win rate has gone up on the most part, which is crazy.
Yeah, but with the reduction in pick rate, you might assume that the overall player doesn't know how to exploit their new form. So maybe it is more top player thing to still pick them. Plus the fact that also they were amazing.
Are you
Mostly because they
saying
were.
that it now takes skill to make use of GCS?
No.
Are you really?
No, not to make use, to pick them.
To pick them takes skill. Yeah, I think
No.
I do think it's fair to say that the pick rate would have dropped because I think the perception is they are worse, therefore they're not picked, right?
Yeah.
Whereas good players know that they're basically not changed that much. They're defensively a little bit weaker, but that's about it. So yeah, I think a lot of players are just happy. I mean, automatic rerolls with precision is just very good now. Ever go that route? Yeah. Timu, if you do want to wonder, I might be too stupid, he says. You're not too stupid. Don't worry, the site's probably the problem to find. All I see is commander and faction. So if you go to the same page as the power rankings, you've got faction ELO, you've got commander ELO, and if you scroll down to the bottom of the commanders, you will find the units. And it is quite a long way. There we go, the unit ELOs. Alternatively, if you're used to finding things on web pages, if you control F and type in unit, literally control F, type in unit, it will take you down to the first appearance of unit, which surprisingly enough is the end of the page. And yes, there are tons of units. And Post says, turns out that sundering is easier to get than rerolls. Who knew? Yeah, pretty much. And rerolls when already in melee combat is incredibly good. Yeah. Oh,
But getting back to the question of percentage, I mean, it obviously is dependent on how you define competitive, for sure. But I would think that you could number out of the top of my head, definitely a couple of units that are completely out of the picture.
Yeah. 3 to 4 in every faction probably are just literally one of them is one of the things you maybe have to defend why you don't consider it, but you just don't consider it.
Yeah.
And it's different as well for NCUs versus units because NCUs, you kind of always consider every NCU, kind of.
Because it's an NCU, right? So that's a value in itself, yeah.
But there are NCUs which are just objectively bad, which you I mean, one off the top of my head actually. I just saw Wendermere there. You basically are never going to pick Aaron Damper, ever. Why? He's just objectively not very good. Whereas there are other ones you are going to pick, and there's a lot of that within every factions because there are NCUs which kind of objectively.
But I think for NCUs it might be definitely over 50%.
Yeah.
But for units, I'm not that sure. Maybe we should take one or two examples.
Yeah, for units, from what I checked in a few factions, it's between 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Units that I would not take in any competitive list.
I think the problem is it also depends a little bit on faction, because like it's faction. Like so, I'll start with free folk because I can easily do free folk. The only real, like, because you've got the giant mag list that exists, which is a competitive list. It's not a list I think is very competitive, but it is a competitive list. You've then got Varamir lists and Steer lists. I see those are the three types of lists you run at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The only real stuff that you don't really see are things like Follows of Bones / Bone Lords Chosen, and I still think they're fine. Like they're just not as good as the others. Frozen Shore Hunters, which are still fine, but they're just not as good.
Could play them, yeah.
Um,
Spearwives.
Spearwives, which are probably the only unit that I actually think is probably still not very good, and they're fine.
Mammoth.
Like, Mammoth's fine. Mammoth sometimes makes the mag lists sometimes because monster, but I agree the Mammoth probably is the weakest unit in the free.
I never saw that. Like, I never saw a mammoth except for the old times played since then.
I've seen they're not common, but they do make. I mean, Brian, if Brian's still in chat, Brian loves his Mammoth. Okay.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
But this is the point. Like, Mammoth's definitely on the list of like not really that great. Spearwives are probably on there, and Follows a Bone, and by extension, kind of Bone Lords Chosen. But that's basically
That's 5 in comparison to how many in total?
like 15, maybe.
Okay,
so
over
I don't think
15.
it's about that. I don't actually know how many options there are. I think it's about 15.
14, from what I really quickly counted. 14.
Yeah, it's 14, but then you've got the Wolfpack and Shadowcat as well, technically. But whatever.
So that's a good value, right? That's okay.
Yeah,
Acceptable.
that's fine. Like it's about a third, really at a push, a third, maybe a fifth of the stuff not playable. But then there's other factions like Starks, like
Starks came into my mind too.
Yeah, so trackers completely fine. Like Starksworn Swords, yeah, okay, not an issue. Castlight Loyalists, they're fine. Like they're the other version of Starksworn Swords. They're not unplayable.
Yeah. Okay.
Your 5-point unit, right? 5-point melee combat unit. They're fine. Tully Sworn Shields,
Nope.
They're not getting picked. Stark Bowmen will get picked because it's a long range option, but they're not great. Berserkers are. I like Berserkers. I enjoy playing Berserkers still.
It's also a guilty pleasure of mine, but
yeah, but they're not competitively great.
Let's be honest. Yeah.
No, She-Bears are like barely fringe competitive anymore. They are, but like, just pay one more point and take GCS.
Yeah. Spearman.
Class up Spearman, no. God awful. Warmint Bruisers are god awful. Outriders see play because they're cavalry and you can run like cavalry lists with Outriders. Still not a great unit. Howsome Great Axes see play. They shouldn't. They're terrible.
Yeah. Glad you said that.
Crown Blood Devils do see play because Rob works really well with them, and the
one use case basically, but yeah.
Yeah, and Valley Cavaliers obviously is the most picked unit probably in Starks at the moment. So yeah, like I mean,
that's
like
way worse here, right?
Yeah. Like half their units.
Yeah.
And again, like you will see these things get played, but like what you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially 5, even 6.
Might add Honor Guard to the list.
Yeah, Eddard's Honor Guard C play. Yeah, with Eddard Commander, yeah, that's fine. The Booze King, great Nick. He says, now do Night's Watch. Watch Marshal, actually a weak pick. Is playable, but probably not a competitively viable option. There's too many things that can hunt it down and kill it, unfortunately. Conscripts, perfectly playable at 5. They're just not what Night's Watch wants at the moment. Cold Hands, yes, obviously. Scorpions, yes. Counter the strongest things in the game right now. Yeah, fine. Ranger Trackers, completely playable. The only reason the Ranger Trackers no longer make the John 8 list is because the Cold Hands went up by 1 point. The only reason that a Scorpion makes that list over Conscripts, I would add, is because Scorpion is a natural counter to the things that John 8 doesn't want to see, which is Lance Cav. Like, if Lance Cav didn't exist, you would not run a Scorpion there, and you would run Conscripts nearly every single time. Keep John going. Vanguard, yes. This is like this is, I genuinely, and I do not mean this with any shadow of a doubt, this I think is the best unit in the game. Like, I actually think Vanguard is the best, most meta impacting unit in the game currently, because it just does so much for what you need it to want it to do. It beats Lance Cavalry, not necessarily in prolonged fights, but with Donald tokens and the support you have from Night's Watch, the Vanguard can do everything. One of the fastest units in the game, one of the most damaging output units in the game, and they have outflank. Like, what more do you want?
Yeah, and a great deck that and NCU combination that enables them in every direction you want to have them, use them. Yeah.
Crossbowman will see play because it's a long range unit again.
Could have made such a huge comeback with Jochen, but no.
Yeah, would have made a huge comeback. I still think the thing is crossbowmen still do see play, like, but it's fringe. They don't make the competitive lists. That doesn't make them bad. Like, the difference there. Swarm Brothers, they probably are, as things turn out to be. These and maybe Veterans are your two units that are basically a bit meh in the meta. Just because, like, if you want a melee infantry unit, these guys do put a lot of damage out, but actually the damage from Swarm Brothers is very comparable to Ranger Vanguard when you consider flanks and panic token. And then you consider that Ranger Vanguard have a free cav move, like the Vanguard just beat Swarm Brothers in a lot of ways. Shadow Tower Spearmen defensively are better than Vets in most cases. So, like, most of the time you're just going to see Shadow Tower Spearmen over Vets, but people still play Vets in competitive lists. Like,
yeah, because the combination with Cold Dance is very
exactly.
nasty for those stuff. Yeah.
Fargo Stone Thrower lists will run Vets, like, you know, these kind of things, and this Stone Thrower is a fringe piece, but it is competitively viable. It's picked.
Yes.
So, like, there's only really one unit on this list in the Watch Marshals who don't see play, and they don't see play because essentially you don't need them.
Yeah.
Like, maybe conscripts as well. Conscripts do not see much play at all. And again, because you don't need them anymore for what you used to want.
Yeah.
So
Night's Watch is in a good spot overall, you know.
Baratheons? No, then they're Sentinels now. They reduced to 5 points. They're seen a lot. Nope. Faithful? No.
So sad. So sad.
Kingsmen? No. Even Queensmen now? No.
Yeah.
Stag Knights champions? Stag-related stuff? Yes, fine. Rose Knights? Yes, they always will. Riders of Highgarden do see because they're light cav. Thornwatch, yes. Skirmisher. Lightbringer's long range unit. Pikemen see fringe stuff in and Renly side stuff, but they're not great. Dragonstone Noble see play because it's 4-point solo. Like, there's a lot here that sees play because basically it's the only option they have.
Yeah.
Not because it's good. Actually, what is refreshing, you look at Martell's. Spearman sees play, Outrider see play, Sandskirmisher see play, Royal Guard see play, Starfall Knights see play. Now, they have got a much smaller roster. The only really units here you see less of are Dune Vipers and Dervishes, and even then, people still like taking these units. I personally don't think either of these units are particularly good, but people do run them. So
yeah, and it's more of a comparison thing. It's not that the unit is unplayable in itself. It's just the other things are more effective and so on. Or
harder to get use out of these.
Or efficient is the better word. Yeah.
I won't do every faction because we'll be here for all night. But there are factions like Starks, like Lannisters have a bit of a hit and miss as well. There's a lot of stuff in Lannister, like, yeah, you know, even Mountain Men after the buffs they've received are still, like, even in Gregor lists, still don't really see much play, which is hilarious. Greyjoys have got a list as long as your arm of stuff that's playable at the moment, and I've got short arms, so Drown Men, Silence Men. That's about it, right?
And the situation for Targs is not good either, right?
Targs is hit and miss.
It
depends how you rate Unsullied, right? Because
Yeah.
Unsullied have got the problem where they actually probably are playable. It's just that GCS are better. And that makes...
I think that in Tarks, if you... Yeah, I'm not going to repeat, but overall, no infantry should be played. So that's my view. But obviously, the thing is that here, Unsullied Swordmasters, I think, should be played if you want to play competitive in Tarks with infantry. But other than that, veterans are not good because Jorah is not good anymore. Dervishes are not good. Pikemen are not really good. Pit fighter is not good. Stormcore archer is not good. Stormcore mercs
Pit fighters. Oh
are,
yeah.
yeah,
God, totally
let's
missed
say.
them.
They really hit the meta, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
I actually couldn't tell you when they got released properly because I don't think anyone can. Which is sad.
Yeah, they really have to rework the whole deck, I guess. No way around it.
They just need to do something. Like, there's just... It's not
That's
even
the
like...
list that I sent you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm just putting it together. Like,
Yeah.
the funny thing is, like, I
It's
don't even
nice.
think that... I don't even think Targs are that bad. It's just that they're a faction that always feels terrible to build lists for and see play and things like
Yeah.
that. It's not that they're actually a bad faction. They just don't feel good, right?
You need to remove a point. Yeah.
Retroactive point deduction. Hate that. Right, there we go. So this is the list that NS has put together for Jockin in Targs, using Jockin Stormcrow Archers. Widower GCS, of course. Jorah Screamers, and then Drogon. Selmy, Danny Unburnt, Varys. You could, of course, run Danny 4-pointer in this slot instead if you wanted to, but like Unburnt is fine. And the rerolls don't give you much anyway. It's only really Screamers that you're adding them for, and Screamers should be charging. So
The thing is that you can play very compact and just move. Just stay out of range all the time.
Yeah.
You're never attacked by anything. You're never touched by anything, and you're always in range.
Yeah, but you don't have any means of getting the card out, right? So it's still...
Oh, you can play Missandei instead of, for instance, Varys.
Oh yeah, yeah, but in this list you don't for now. Yeah, but you could. Okay.
Well, it's just that I didn't want to abuse this, but yeah, you could literally do that and then be shooting 4 times, so 11 times, 11 dice. Yeah.
This is very similar to your Queen of Marine list, basically, isn't it? Like, but obviously you're dropping Queen of Marine, obviously, for counterplots. So like, this is probably like in a very equivalent list. What we saw your Queen of Marine earlier. So.
Yeah, and the cards are better.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
So
sadness.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
And the swordsmen, so the GCS are better. Pretty much everything is better in that list. And when I engage with the screamers, I can then be shot at with the archers and then trigger a stubborn tenacity. And so it is very, very, very dangerous to be engaged with the screamers.
Because I'm insane, I'd change Drogon into 2 freedmen and then find another way to use a point because I'm insane. But yeah. Yeah, no, I mean there's options there definitely. Worth looking into. Right then, that was a long rabbit hole I didn't expect to go down, but I enjoyed it. All right then. Should we have a look at what tournaments? There aren't going to be that many. Oh, Rimble Rumble ran over this weekend in the UK. Shout out to them. Shout out to Brian for putting on a great event again, and it looks like it was well attended, well enjoyed by people. I will actually see if it champion happens if you load all your tabs, because I don't actually know who won it. And for those of you who don't remember or don't know, Rimble Rumble's like a end of the season for fun tournament put on in Liverpool, and Steve won it, of course. Steve, very good player. And he won it with Boltons of all things. Love to see it.
How many players?
16.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but Rimble Run was one of these events. It is a small event, but it's very much around the theme and the fun and that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's great to see Steve
Oh,
coming on.
5 rounds.
Yeah, 5 rounds. Yeah, two-day event. The full 2-day event, but it's there for the community basically, in the local area, and it's important in the UK. Certainly in the north of the UK, one of those quite exclusive events. It's hard to actually hard to go along because they don't have much space. But it's an event I've always wanted to go to, just never had the opportunity.
Definitely some familiar names there, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all your UK likelihoods like Scadders, Gregors, Darkman. These people go to a lot of events. Tim Whitney, Psycho Steve, Carly goes along. Yeah, cool. I love Rumble Rumble. Even though I've never been, I love what it stands for. Go. Right. Let's have a look. We've got events happening in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Oof. North remembers. I can't think of an Argentinian event that we've seen before. That might be a first. Yes. Let's go Argentina. Right. So 20-man event in Argentina, Buenos Aires. An event in Gawler, South Australia, I'm guessing. Cool. Australia.
Ooh. Making
Wow.
a comeback,
We've got
maybe.
some absolute crazy stuff going on here. It's all like exotic places we haven't seen for a while. Russia, putting on another event. An event in Bedburg, Germany. You traveling for this one? No. Event in
Nope.
Karlsruhe in Germany as well. German events. Oh, you guys are spoiled. A new Fresh Star 01. A new wargaming scene in Poland by the looks of it, in a place called Kielce. I have no idea how they pronounce that. Not somewhere I've ever seen before, so hopefully a new Polish area, because what Poland needs is more people playing this game.
Definitely. Yep.
We've got an event in Poland as well, in Gdansk. An event in Yardville, New Jersey, and one in East Windsor, Connecticut. That's kind of looks like to be a week-long, maybe league tournament type thing happening in Connecticut there. An event in Calgary, in Alberta, Canada, and an event at Toys for Tots Toy Drive Tournament at Ender's Game in Clovis, California.
Look at this one.
Ooh.
60 players, 2 versus 2.
2 versus 2 event happening in Medina. Interesting. And they've got 23 people up already. Cool to see. They're running a 2v2.
That might be something to talk about, yeah.
Yeah. There aren't actually any names on there that... Oh, Frollo, I recognise that name. Olmo is a name I've seen before. But yeah, there's a lot of names on here I don't know that well, which is good. Like, this is really good. It's obviously a greater, larger scene for Italy. That's pretty cool. Oh, wow. I'll have to see how that one goes. An event happening in Poland again, in Olsztyn. An event in Hungary as well this weekend. In a place called Metagame Club, which doesn't want to call it a Metagame Club. And that's it for this week. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 events. 14 events. So, as we know, bit of a downturn towards the Christmas period. But still, 14 events is a lot of events happening this weekend on the site. And I'm really interested in that 2v2. I'm glad you mentioned that one, LArks. Yeah. See how that one goes in Medina, Italy.
What are your next big events, guys?
No comment. I don't know. I really want to go to the Lowlands GT, but I don't think I'm going to be allowed.
I will bring interesting beverages.
Oh, you bring interesting beverages every tournament.
Signature move, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd love to go to Lowlands. Unfortunately, it's probably out of the picture to my wedding next year. But probably my next big one is, I think, going to be Always Winter, which is in June or July next year. which is a long time away now. But yeah,
Okay.
fortunately. All right,
Mine
so
will
Something to miss it.
be Hamburg
Hamburg.
tournament
Cool.
from the guys, organized for the guys and over at Hits and Quits.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
They've got their
Big
big
shout
event,
out.
haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah. And really, since Hamburg is my hometown, I'm really looking forward.
When is that?
And
Is that February, right?
early
Yeah.
February, yeah. And it's might be it might be even bigger than German nationals if everyone shows up.
Nice.
Yeah.
So 2-day event. I think only 5 rounds though.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the waiting list on it's over at T3.
Right. Okay.
So should be definitely more than 30 or something right now. Yeah, that will be the one I'm traveling to. And I definitely want to go to Poland again because where I live, and Poland is a great place to play Song. How about you,
Yeah.
Nicolas?
Oh, it's going to be the flatland,
Lowlands.
so
Yeah.
lowlands, lowlands in March 23rd, something like that.
Yep. It's
So,
in March 23rd. Yeah.
Shout out to the Rotterdam White Cars guys.
Yeah. Friends over at Rotterdam White Cars running that one. I really hope it's really good. Like, it really is it's unfortunate because it is literally the tournament is on the 23rd, 24th, which is not a massive issue, but I get married on the 5th, and I'm 90% sure my partner would murder me if I left to go to a tournament 2 weeks before getting married. I might be lucky. We'll see. But yeah, no, it's gonna be good. I'm looking forward to next year, even if it means playing a little bit less. But the next year of tournaments, and then there are some other really big tournaments coming up, of course, in due course, which will be announced publicly and stuff later on. But it's looking to be really interesting 2024 to 2025 cycle. So we'll see how the year and everything else unpacks itself. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah. Right then. Well, pleasure to have you both on, as always. And I wish you have great Christmases. Daniel, for those of you who don't know, Daniel's partner, well, technically Daniel, but that's not how this whole thing works. Daniel's partner is pregnant. So he'll be going through the process of having new children, new feet to have to.
It's the second one, so I know what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Exactly, but it's still new. It's the miracle of childbirth is still the miracle of childbirth. That's what the meaning of life taught me from from the Monty Python crew. But no, obviously I wish you, because I might not talk to you before between now and then much. So obviously, good luck with all of that, and I hope that goes well. And
thank you so much.
Of course, to both of you, I hope you have a great Christmas period in general.
Same.
You too. Thank you for having us on.
Pleasure as always.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Definitely chat to you, if not individually, with Patreon chat anyway. And on that note, guys, if you do want to support the site and everything like that, here's the actual ad. Yeah, I got you all earlier. Do feel free to sign up to the Patreon and join the Patreon chats where you get to talk to people like me. I talk anyway, who cares? But talk to people like LArks and NS in a confined space where no one will say that you're wrong, except Carlo, which is why you pay him, because he says you're always wrong. Patreon chat? Yeah, anyway, let's not worry about that too much.
It's a great experience, yeah.
Jockin is up on the website along with all of the Neutral Hero Box 3 as well. Darkstar Retinue isn't, because for some reason Darkstar Retinue wasn't on the app. So that's not uploaded onto Stats, but when that gets put on the app, it will be on Stats as well. Thank you very much for tuning in for another week. Again, thank you for LArks and Nicolas for joining us. Any last words?
Yes, I just want to say that you're not only joining the Patreon channel, but you're also supporting an interesting community, an interesting website that allows us to have great content, but also to enjoy what we are doing during the tournaments and not having the burden of organizing all that manually and so on. So overall, thank you to Carlo and thank you to Mickey to be the leaders of this Azuya stats community. So yeah, thank you.
I'll just have it known quickly that I do very little apart from this show for stats. Otherwise Carlo will kill me. Right, well, thank you very much, the pair of you again, and thank you all for tuning in, guys. I may not be around next week, but if not, I'll be around next week and the week after. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you soon. Bye.
See you.
Bye bye.
Ready? Aim! There's too many! Anyone see my mammoth? Stampy!